What's up, Packer fans? Happy Sunday. Welcome into the Pack a Day podcast. My name is Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Today, I get to share with you my observations from rookie minicamp, which, let me just tell you, it was so incredibly great just to hear the snap of the football and to see football being played in Green Bay again, or at least practiced in Green Bay again. And no drama, none of the back stuff. It was just Green Bay Packers players with the G on their helmet playing football, and it was so refreshing. Nice day out, and not obviously a ton of players in camp. Got my rookie roster right here, which I'm sure you've seen on Twitter, but I don't know what, maybe 20 some ish guys in minicamp today. So it's not like there's a ton of guys there, but there were, I felt like, some observations that I could take away. So I do want to start off though by giving just a quick disclaimer. So I could tell you that somebody stood out, or I could tell you that somebody looked poor. Like, literally, it couldn't be closer to mattering. And what I mean by that is, like, the observations are still fun to kind of get your first impressions and things like that. But I'm going to talk about TJ Slaton in just a second. And I thought he really looked the part. And I'll go over why, and like I said, in just a moment. But like, TJ Slaton going up against some undrafted free agent guards doesn't necessarily mean a lot. These kids' heads are just absolutely swimming. You can see still like the thinking and the thought process going on with them. Them battling it out in some drills back and forth. Like it frankly doesn't mean a lot. Like, it's great that some of these guys make good first impressions, and you love to see that. But at the same time, like, you go, week one against a 6-year veteran offensive guard, and it's not going to matter one iota what happened today in an unpadded rookie mini camp against an undrafted guy you were going against, right? So take these with a grain of salt, good, bad, or indifferent. These are just kind of some initial first impressions. Even though it's only like 20 some guys, right? There's a lot going on, and also in a way there's not a ton going on. And what I mean by that is, you're trying to watch all of these different rookies and see who you can kind of catch a glimpse of, see who's, catching your eye and maybe performing well in that practice. At the same time, like, a lot of these drills were like, showing how to wrap up on a tackling donut, or just kind of going through the motions of where you want your hand placement when you're playing defensive line or offensive line or things like that. It's not exactly, the most insanely entertaining thing in the world, and it's not something that you are able to glean a ton from. But they did have some combo periods where there's multiple guys in the field working through things at the same time, so you were able to catch some of that stuff. So disclaimer aside, let's kind of go into the nuts and bolts of some of the things that I saw at practice. Again, you're trying to watch 25 different players at once and catch what you can, so it's not like this is going to be all encompassing. But let me start with TJ Slaton. I thought for the first and foremost, he looked the part. This is a mammoth human being. And like the very first thing, if I'm just saying like that caught my eye, period, was the size of TJ Slaton. He is a big dude. He moves well. And, I think one of the interesting aspects of him coming out is like, well, he was a 1-year starter, and like, maybe he's not going to, he's just going to be kind of a one-trick pony against the run. But he was flashing. He was flashing against some of the players, like even a Royce Newman, who is obviously a more experienced player. He was flashing with both strength and quickness, getting into the backfield on some of those drills. Like, he is an impressive human being. And if you're just looking for a late round guy to kind of catch your eye on day one for me, day two for these guys, like, that's the type of player that immediately caught my eyes. Now, again, no pads, nothing like that, but I was impressed with just his raw athleticism, raw strength, and he was taking, offensive linemen across the way and just kind of having his way with them at times. So he was a really, really fun player to watch, and just immediately catches your eye as somebody who passes the eye test. Now, he didn't look fully in shape quite yet, if I'm being totally transparent. A couple of times where he's got his hands on his hips bent over. And he did mention in his press conference where the difference in temperature coming from Florida actually had him kind of changing up his breathing and stuff a little bit. So you can just, again, these guys are all getting used to a million different things at the moment, but I came away really, really impressed, more than I ever thought I would be, with TJ Slaton on day one. If you were, if you didn't know anything going in and you were to say like, who are the Packers' top couple draft picks from the group that you were watching, I would have said Amari Rogers and TJ Slaton were the two that looked like they were the guys that were drafted the earliest. So again, take it with a grain of salt. It's not worth a ton on a day 2 of rookie minicamp. Who knows what type of career he's going to have. That's still all well into the future. But you always want to make those positive first impressions. And I thought TJ Slaton did exactly that. Another player who stood out is somebody that has stood out to me going back to training camp a season ago and was one of my favorite undrafted free agent guys from last season. And that was Delonte Scott. And Delonte Scott's a really interesting player. So they list him and practice him along the defensive line. He's 6'5", 246. At least that's what he's listed at. I think that's probably what he came in at last year. I don't know how much they've updated it. My guess is he's maybe, bumped up to like 250, high 250s, maybe 260s at this point. Point being, the rest of the defensive linemen are in like the 290s, 300 pounds, right? You think of your Kenny Clarks, Tadaro Slayton's, TJ Slayton's like what, in the 320s probably? Dude's out there playing in the 250s, 260s along the defensive line. But man, going back to last year's training camp and going into today, consistently flashes with quickness, with quick hands, and is shooting into the backfield. Now, is he going to hold up well at the point of attack as a defensive lineman? That's a really great question. And is it something he can do with consistency against NFL caliber players? That's another question that he's going to answer. But I was so impressed once again with just his raw quickness, his ability to get into the backfield, shoot gaps. This is a player that I'm going to continue to keep my eye on. And you're always looking for something that's maybe a little bit unique, right? Playing at that size and that weight along the defensive line, he's going to bring something a little bit different to the table. I still think he has a very uphill climb to make a roster, probably still a practice squad guy in my opinion, but he's a really intriguing guy. And again, if you're looking for just players to flash off the, while you're looking at it live, I can't say flash off the tape, but just flash while you're watching it. I thought Delonte Scott was once again one of those guys. And, he didn't get a chance. I don't believe he was ever promoted to the active roster with any of the call-ups a season ago, but I believe was on the practice squad through the entirety of last season and is definitely somebody that once training camp rolls around, I'm definitely going to be able to continue to keep my eye on him and be excited to continue to keep my eye on him. Quick note along the offensive line, just kind of how guys were lining up. Cole Van Lanen was primarily practicing at left guard, Josh Myers primarily at center, and then Royce Newman at right guard. So, there's the thought of like the positional versatility. Maybe Cole Van Lanen could play a little tackle and guard. Same thing with Royce Newman. Maybe Myers playing some guard and center. The way that I view this is like, they had some of the other guys that, I think Kronk was out at tackle, and then Dietzen, I think, was at left tackle. I think, frankly, what they were doing here is getting these guys at their probably best long-term position in minicamp and worrying about everyone else later. Like, we'll figure out John Dietzen and we'll figure out Coy Kronk and those sort of guys later. Let's just fit these 3 guys at the spots that we think they might be best at in the NFL. And then because that's the primary evaluation that we want, right? Myers at center, Van Lanen at left guard, and then Newman at right guard. That's what we want to see now. And then we'll figure out the logistics of everything else later. But it was interesting that I thought maybe just with the guys that were in camp, I thought maybe Van Lanen and Newman would start at the tackle positions. They would fill in some of those other guys at guard, and then Myers would be at center. But they kicked those guys inside to guard right away. It's definitely the expectation of just about everyone going in that both Van Lanen as well as Royce Newman were better off as guards in the NFL. So to me, this is just the Packers getting them probably at their long-term spots sooner rather than later. But I thought that was noteworthy as well. The one that stood off the page a little bit to me today was Royce Newman. And while everyone else was struggling with TJ Slaton, Royce Newman was the one that was kind of giving him the best battles. And I thought just really he looked the most advanced along the offensive lineman. Now, I didn't get a great look at Josh Myers, if I'm being transparent, so it's not like I can say that Myers was doing well or struggling. Just to me, when I happened to be watching it, it was Royce Newman snaps, and I thought that he did a pretty good job overall. So that was somebody else who I thought had a pretty good day. Another player that, again, kind of jumps off the page to you, especially amongst a group of rookies, is Amari Rogers. Now, there's only 3 wide receivers in camp. you could tell that Amari Rogers very, very clearly was by far and away the best of the 3 wide receivers in camp, which he should be. But that's also what you want to see, right? You don't want to all of a sudden get there and there's Amari Rogers standing against a couple of guys that were undrafted and all of a sudden they're looking better, right? So Amari Rogers was leaps and bounds ahead of where, Chris Blair and these other guys were. So I thought overall he had a nice day. You can still tell, again, this is the classic rookie minicamp, right? He's just taking in all the coaching that he possibly can. He's still kind of going through his routes, wondering what his coaches are going to say, and then just trying to emulate what they're telling him. This is pure, like when you get to training camp, there's still obviously that level of coaching, but these guys are running through like they're professionals. And this is really, you can just tell, right? Going back to last training camp, I can only imagine how much it hurt some of these guys, especially like a Jordan Love, to not have this situation and get this, really some of this one-on-one coaching. The defensive line, there's 2-3 guys there that are practicing with the defensive line. The offensive line had plenty of guys, but like the wide receivers, there's 3 guys there. This isn't a training camp where there's 10, 12 guys and you're just fighting to get any reps in coaching that you can, knowing that for the most part, it's going to be, the veterans that they're focusing on to get ready for the season. This is such a huge opportunity for these guys to soak in that coaching. You could tell Amari Rogers was doing exactly that, but again, clean route runner, catches and really snatches the ball outside of his body, which you love to see. And you just tell he has that level of confidence as well. So I thought he had a really nice day and again, jumped off the page as you were watching him. And then he was doing some punt returning as well. Now, it was interesting because he caught everything and just clean hands, no concerns there. But you can tell he's still just kind of working through like getting to the spot that he needs to, just gauging the ball right and making sure he's in the right spot at the right time. Like there were a couple of times where he was just a little bit off and then had to make a late adjustment and kind of make not like a diving catch, but like a running awkward sort of catch, but still made it clean. But he's still working through making sure that he's getting to those spots, being able to catch it clean and then immediately accelerate through that as well. So still a little bit of a work in progress there, but really liked what I saw out of Amari Rogers. Running backs also were interesting. Kylan Hill, another player that I thought really looked apart. Thought he showed off nice hands, quickness, cutting ability. To me, he was the running back that jumped off the page. Now, the other one that did in a different way was Patrick Taylor, simply because this dude is huge. I mean, he is an absolute beast, just in size and just overall stature. And I don't even remember him like looking that big a season ago. So maybe that's on me, but I'm sure he was probably the same size. But he is a big, intimidating dude. And in a way, Mike Weber had a nice day, but to me, you've already got Aaron Jones and you've already got AJ Dillon. And now to me, Kylan Hill and Patrick Taylor, are really going to be fighting it out for that number 3 spot. I think Mike Weber is probably the guy out here, but we'll see what happens. You never quite know. And then of course, Dexter Williams, who wasn't there today, is in that conversation as well. So going to be a very interesting running back battle. Some quick ones. Shamar Jean-Charles made a really nice pass breakup on a ball. I believe he was covering Amari Rogers, but I couldn't see it super clearly from where I was. Innis Gaines got completely turned around on one play by Chris Blair, but on another play, I believe also covering Amari Rogers, jumped the route and had a really nice interception on a play. So up and down day for Innis Gaines. Eric Stokes, I believe, and again, I'm on the other side here, but definitely gave up a long touchdown, what would have been a touchdown going up, and I believe it was against Chris Blair. But I thought you saw some good things out of out of Eric Stokes, but he's still definitely working on his technique. This is still going to be a work in progress, and that's one of those plays where a wide receiver like Chris Blair is getting behind him. Why are those sort of things happening? That's all technique, and that's all things that he's going to have to continue to work on. I know somebody had asked me to keep an eye on Joe Barry. I didn't need to keep an eye on him because I heard him. He's definitely going to be much more of a hands-on coach, working with the defensive linemen, dropped an F-bomb, really getting after them. He's an intense guy. I think he's really going to bring an interesting energy and dynamic to that defense. I was impressed by what I saw on day one from Joe Barry. And then just kind of some of the conversations that you overhear. I'm not giving away any coaching tips here, but you hear the wide receiver coaches telling the rookies how Devontae Adams does things. You hear the defensive line coaches telling the rookies how Kenny Clark does things. It's just interesting hearing those sort of things where like, hey guys, this is what Devontae Adams does, or hey guys, this is what Kenny Clark does. And why wouldn't you, right? Those are two of the best in the business at what they do. Devontae clearly. But I mean, of course you would show and tell them like, this is what Kenny Clark and Devontae Adams are going to do. Try to copy that as much as you possibly can. And then last but not least, didn't get a great glimpse of him at camp, but Kurt Benkert was signed as the Packers' fourth quarterback behind Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love, Blake Bortles, and now Kurt Benkert will also be the four quarterbacks that are hopefully all in training camp. Of course, one of those will be yet to be determined. That's going to do it for me. Hope you enjoyed this mini camp update edition of the Pack-A-Day podcast. I'll be right back here tomorrow, I believe, doing a deep dive into Royce Newman, so make sure to check that out. And yeah, I appreciate it. Follow along if you have not already. Make sure to check out today's audio podcast. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.